far, we've added lots of different content, text, charts, smart art, pictures, video, etc. to our slides. However, we have yet to do any kind of motion on our slides or any kind of transition between our slides. So if I go into slideshow view and move to another slide, it simply moves. There's no kind of transition. We can add transitions on the Transitions tab on the ribbon. So in the Transitions to this slide gallery, you see all the different options we have. Now if I add a transition to a slide, that transition will trigger when moving from the previous slide to the slide with the transition, or moving from the slide with the transition back to the previous slide. Moving forward to the next slide will not trigger a transition unless that slide has a transition as well. To apply a transition, we simply click on the transition we want. That transition will then preview in the slide viewer. Some transitions have effect options. Notice the one I picked, glitter, has lots of different options. So hexagons or diamonds from the 4 different directions, left, top, right, and bottom. If I choose an option, that new option will preview one time. If I want to look at it again, I can move to the far left of the ribbon and click the preview button, and the transition will preview again. The duration is how long the transition lasts. I can adjust the duration either shorter or longer to my taste. I then have this apply to all button. Take the current transition and its settings and apply it to all slides. Do not fall into the trap of let's make our presentation as snazzy as possible. Do not apply a different transition to every single slide. It's distracting to your audience and it can be confusing. If you're going to use transitions, use the same transition for every slide in your presentation or every slide in a section. If there's a clear section break in your presentation, you can use different transitions in each section. Now that doesn't mean if you pick glitter, you have to use the same effect option every single time. You can adjust the different effects, but the transition remains the same. Maybe the diamonds come from a different direction. Maybe it's, maybe on some of the sides we go left, some of them we go right, some of them we use hexagons, but it's the same basic transition. Again, do not use a different transition on every single slide. Now we can also play a sound, as you see here, when we move from one slide to another. There are built-in sounds, as you see, and then we can pick other sound, which is find a sound file that will play. So as the slide transitions, this sound will play. It'll play as the slide is transitioning, as the animation for the transition is happening. Remember, just like a transition will only happen going from the previous slide to the current slide with the slide with the transition on it, or moving back to the previous slide from the transition slide. So that is a quick tour of transitions. We'll cover animations here in just. All right. Animation. Animation, like transitions, can really enhance the presentation you're making, or it can totally destroy it. Too much animation, just like different transitions, is distracting and confusing to the audience, and it removes them from listening to your presentation, the point you're trying to make, to watching the animation, wondering what transition will come next, or etc., which is probably what you didn't want them to do, or you wouldn't have made the presentation. So, moving over to the Animations tab, a lot can be done here with animations. I'm going to insert a shape onto my slide here so we can talk about animation, and we'll use a smiley face. So there's my red smiley face with a yellow outline. So there we go. There's our red smiley face with yellow outline. Now to animate, as you notice when I went to the animation tab, everything was dimmed out. I have to have an object selected to animate. And that can be an empty content box. As you see, when I click the content box, even though it's empty, all of my animation options appeared. But we're going to worry about the smiley. I'm going to actually delete this content box. And we're going to focus on the smiley face. Now, animation has different categories: entrance, exit, motion paths, and emphasis. So, entrance, animate the object coming onto your slide. Emphasis, emphasize it while it's on your slide. Exit, send it off the slide. Motion path, move it around the slide. Now, if we click the animation gallery, we will see options for all 4 categories. At the bottom, though, you will see more entrance, more emphasis, more exit, more motion. There are many more options than you see here. But let's just pick float in, for example. So my smiley face floated in to my slide. Now, just as I had on transitions, I have effect options. Do I want it to float up or float down? I only have 2 options here. We'll leave it float up. I have the same options I did with transitions. Duration but I have additional options. Is there going to be a delay? And when are we going to start this? So OnClick is the default. So if I go to my slide, and there's my transition, but as I go to my slide, you see there's nothing on the slide. It's blank because my animation is on click. So when I click the mouse, there comes my smiley face. Now, what if I want the smiley face to appear without having to click the mouse? Then I'll change the animation to with or after previous. I only have one animation, so with or after really makes no difference. So now, as this slide transitions, there comes my smiley face automatically. Now, with previous and after previous do make a difference if I have more than one animation. If I click the animation pane, we can see all the animations on the current slide. I can also preview all of them by clicking play from, and it'll play from whatever animation I have highlighted. Now, I want my smiley face to also have an exit effect. I want to send it off the slide too. Now, a common mistake is to go back to animation here and choose an exit effect. That will overwrite your entrance effect. If I already have an animation applied and I want to add another animation, I have to use the Advanced Animation group, Add Animation. Then I can add the exit effect. Now you see we have 2 effects. We have effect 0, which is the entrance, and effect 1, which is the exit. Now the exit, back to the default on click. Now with previous, after previous. If I said with previous, we'd have a problem. It's going to enter and exit at the same time. So now this option makes a difference. If I say after previous, notice how on our animation pane over here, the animation moved. If I want to make the animation longer, by the way, I can drag this bar. I can adjust this bar, which will actually adjust the animation without having to change the duration. Just a little tip there. But now, let's watch our slide. So our slide transitions in. Here comes our smiley face, and there goes our smiley face. So that is a basic animation. We had an entrance and an exit. Now let's add a third animation here. Let's add some emphasis to this. So we're going to, we'll spin it. We'll spin our smiley face. Now you'll notice, however, we have a small problem. We're going to enter our smiley face, exit our smiley face. Wait a minute, I can't. What happened? I can't spin my smiley face. Well, because the animations are in the wrong order. Animations are added as they're added to the animation pane in the order that you add them. However, I can't spin smiley face 3 when smiley face 3 has exited the slide. So I need to reorder the animation. So I can either use move earlier here or the up arrow in the animation pane. Now you'll see a 0, a 1, a 0 on smiley face 3 for the entrance, 1 for the emphasis, and nothing for the exit. So let's watch what happens now. So our smiley face comes on, and it stays. I never changed the emphasis from the default. So I'm going to click, and the smiley face is going to spin, and then it's going to fade out. Because remember, smiley face 3, the exit is after previous. So after the emphasis effect happens, the next animation will automatically trigger, not waiting for me to click the mouse, and it'll fade out. So you can use a combination of on-click and with or after previous, because it would make sense. My smiley face is here. I don't want to interact with it until I actually click it. But when I'm clicking, after I clicked it, it's done. I'm done with it. Let's move on to something else. Now, we can have lots of objects on our slides here. So let's do this. Let's insert another shape. This time, we'll do sunshine. So here's our sun. Let's make our sun, let's see, other theme fills. We'll make our sun, the color set I have for my theme doesn't have yellow, but let me make yellow. Here we go. So there's my sun. Now, I can animate my sun, of course, just like I animated my smiley face. So we'll have an entrance effect here. Let's look at more entrance effects. Here's all of our different options on entrance effects. So let's wedge it. And notice as I click an option, that option is previewed unless I uncheck this preview effect checkbox. If I don't check it, notice I clicked rise up, but the effect was not previewed because I did not have the box check. All right, rise up looks good for my sun. The sun rises. So rise up looks good. I don't have any effect options for this one. So now my sun is going to rise up after all my smiley face animation is done. I don't like that. I want the sun to show up at the same time the smiley face does. So I'm going to move this earlier. Now notice, because sun is on click and smiley face 3 is not, I get a 0 and a 1. I'm going to change sun 4 to with previous. Notice the number goes away. So now my smiley face and my sun will appear at the same time. There you go. There's my smiley face. There's my sun. Now I want to add another animation to my sun here. And I want to add an exit. So we had a rise up. Let's see, for exit, do we have a fall down effect here? We have a float down and a sink down. Let's look at the difference here. So sink down, all right, and float down. Don't really like either one of those, but we'll go with, see what float. Okay, we'll go with sink down. We'll go with sink down for this, and we'll click OK. Now it adds it to the end, and it adds it with OnClick. I'm going to put it with previous. Notice it aligns it here with the smiley face. So now my sun and my smiley face are going to show up. When I click the slide, my smiley face is going to spin, and then both are going to leave the slide. So those are animations. Now the last one I haven't talked about is a motion path. Let's give my son a motion path on the slide. So I'm going to add an animation. Remember, if I go over here, it will remove the current animation. So I want to go over here, and let's do a more motion path. Notice we have lots of paths here, lots of different paths here, but I'm going to do a custom path. I'm going to do a custom path. Now it's going to say, where do you want your sunshine to go? Well, I want it to go like that, up here to the corner. And you will see that it does so. And that wasn't exactly the greatest thing, the greatest straight line in the world, but it wasn't too bad with the mouse. So let me show you that again. So when I go down to custom path, I draw where I want it to go. I'm going to avoid the words here. When I'm done, I double click. And now I have my motion path. Now my motion path is in the wrong place. So let me get rid of this motion path. And I'm going to add this motion path here. I'm going to move it up to come on with my smiley face. Let me undo that. Let me move back to where I was here. Okay. Now we have our Sun 4 and our Sun 4. I'm going to select this Sun 4, and I'm going to add that motion path one more time. As you notice, what did I do? Well, I overwrote. I did what I told you guys to be careful of. I overwrote the current motion by using it up here and not over here. So I did that on purpose to show you a common mistake. Now, as you notice here in more animations, add motion path, don't see custom as an option. So if I want a custom motion path, I'm actually going to have to select that one first and then add my other animations. So let's do this. So there's my Sun 4. Let's add an animation and more entrance effects. We had it rise up. We're going to move this earlier here. It's going to be after previous. My with previous is, well, no, we're going to make it on click. And then my smiley face is on click as well. So now, here comes my smiley face. Here comes my sun. When I click, my sun goes up. My smiley face moves. And both leave the slide. So there's some animation for you. Okay, we can also do something called a trigger. On click by default means click anywhere on the slide. And this trigger. Click anywhere on the slide to trigger an on-click animation. However, I want all of these things to happen only when I click this start slide here. So let's go to my slide. And notice nothing happens. When I click the slide, I go to the next slide. Before, remember, if I had an on-click animation, it triggered it. When I click this Start Slide button, now the smiley face is triggered, then the sun is triggered. So this allows you to put a button, a picture, something on the slide that triggers the animation, not just clicking anywhere. Could be useful, just showing it too.